group for inviting me. NSTA has valued our relationship over the last years, and we look forward to continuing it. So thank you so much for reaching out. Today I'm going to talk about the vertical alignment of science education in the United States. I'm going to touch on our next generation science standards, curriculum, teacher education, and students. Okay, next slide. Oh, do I have the slide changer here? There we go, okay. The United States, as you know, has a unique educational environment. We have, first, every child in the country has access to education up to grade 12. And in 2021, that meant that 48.5 million students were in our educational system. And that included over 3.2 million teachers. It's a huge system. Secondly, as you also may know, we do not have a national curriculum. We're one of only a few countries that does not. We do not have national standards, and what that
处的社会文化情境，包括这个国家和社会啊，还有这个地区这个科技和经济发展的需求。但是尽管如此呢，我们依然可以概括出一些基本共识。那么一个共识呢，就是其实科学的基本特征啊，对科学教育的核心任务已经进行了定位。那么科学呢，它是我们探知世界的一种方式，当然是一种基本方式。它同时是一种过程、产品和介质。比如作为一种产品，科学知识作为解释世界的一套这种规范的系统的体系，它是受到科学研究的过程的建制所保障的、所辩护的。那么自近代科学以来呢，其实科学研究的方式、工具还有组织形式都在发生着变化。但是其中不变的呢，就是科学共同体在探究自然现象的时候啊，形成科学的概念和理论，在这样的过程当中对客观性的追求，这一点是不变的。而且这种客观性的追求呢，是受到我们刚才提到的社会规范科学的一个研究的过程啊等等一些保护，从而确保科学的这种权威性、普遍性和公共性。那么我们如何理解科学教育的核心任务呢？实际自然而然就是说，我们的科学教育呢，就需要完整的去帮助学习者认识科学研究实践当中一个真正的认识论的过程，帮助学生能够理解。今天的科学教育啊，它的重点不在于教给学生知道一些确定性的知识，不仅仅知其然，而且知其所以然。对于这样一点这个陈述呢，其实早在2000年的时候，中国科学院就给出了一个定义啊，强调科学知识、科学思想、科学方法与科学精神的一个整体的一个体系啊。科学教育是一个整体的体系。那么今天更重要的是要帮助学生，你要知道你所学的那些科学知识是怎么来的，也就是说理解这些科学知识与它相关联的方法和过程的建制，你才能够用好科学去解决问题，才能去应对世界的变化，才能够跟。
Thanks to CYC organizers. I am going to focus more on the inquiry-based and non-formal education to nurture the young talent and promote as well as popularize science. I think this green button is to move forward. Okay. Well, you know it all, and this whole forum is about science, technology, innovation, and STEM education for sustainable development. But just to recap, that the science, technology, innovation, or STI, and STEM education are increasingly recognized as being fundamental to achieve development on a sustainable basis. And some of the countries, we heard a presentation from Japan yesterday, saying that they don't have much natural resources, but they have built on, I think on science and technology. Same is true for South Korea. And in recent past, particularly China, Republic of Korea, to some extent Malaysia, and a number of other things in our region, have actually gained rapid economic catch-up, mainly based on science technology. Because they were the ones who really absorbed and adapted creativity together with the technology. And we heard the presentation of Professor Pei on technology involvement as well. So these sectors are really crucial for developing qualified human resource and STEM workforce. I think for the industries also, with the technological development, we need STEM workforce rather than ordinary labor, and particularly when we have the fast growing challenges that we have, including the climate change, water and food security, energy is an issue. So the industry also needs that kind of, but I think we are in an age where greater access to smart devices to our younger generation, and the students are more digitally connected than ever before. And they are growing at a very fast pace with internet and cellular technology. I always ask not my children anymore, but my grandchildren to help me with my mobile activity and fixing and all that. And I sometimes fail to understand how have they learned. Although my granddaughter does not own a mobile phone, yet she would guide me how to handle it. So the young children today are really truly digital natives who tend to outsource many cognitive tasking. And yesterday you saw the results of PISA, the OECD, and it said that the faculty is the least required because the children actually have many other sources, and we have to be aware of that. This is a different discussion. I think we could have with NSTA and Julie, how the teachers have to be updated to be really having a role. We are, of course, in the fourth industrial revolution, but if you look at the previous industrial revolutions, they had a certain, specific aspect, like the water and steam engine in the first industrial revolution, the electricity later on, automation. But now, this fourth industrial revolution, I think, essentially is the digital revolution. And there are emerging technologies that are and will be part of the development. So it is therefore urgent to develop global competencies and technological skills in our youth that allow everyone to fit in the tomorrow's world for sustainable future. And if those skills are not developed, then perhaps we might be, in our country, Pakistan, there is always a talk that there are so many, but we are producing jobless graduates because they don't have the skills. They have the degrees, but not the skills, and they could not get forward. So as you see, the essential emerging, there are large number. Artificial intelligence is being talked about all around, and that's going to be in everything. Of course, there are ethical issues with that, but that's there, and we have to produce our future generation, prepare them in a way that they can handle that all. And I mentioned the skills and the skills in 21st century and school education. I think in most developing countries, and probably in some developed countries also, they are out of sync. They don't really synchronize. The means that we are seeing This means that there's bigger and bigger gap between schools and the tech society. And the gap is responsible for deterioration of the performance in our schools and our educational system. Therefore, it becomes harder to get our children to buy in to the idea. You know, they say that the school is satisfying their needs and that the school is a bridge to the 21st century. But I think this is not true anymore. Now, this is top 10 skills in 15 and 20, and you see the change, but the complex problem solving and critical thinking, creativity is increases. But when we look at the 23, you may not be able to read it through, but you know, this multitasking and the creativity and critical thinking is overarching. This is the global data. You can have it on, you know, for the post on the World Economic Forum. So skills are very important, but the only one 21st century skill that everybody needs, you know, is to be able to actually understand the changes. So the model that used to say that learn while you are at school, while you are young, the skills that you will apply during your lifetime. Now this is no longer tenable. The skills that you can learn when you are at school presently, today, will not really be applicable tomorrow. So they will be obsolete by the time that today's children get to a workplace. But the one competitive skill is really skill of being able to learn. So the lifelong learning and remaining in a learning mode. Now this is a kind of a tuning of mindset.
Youth who are far away from science centers or who don't have access to some of these resources.
Thank you very much. This is an issue that I myself have been directly affected. I come from a very rural area and with a, you know, very humble background, not even a high school. I had to travel, you know, 5 kilometers to go to a school. So it is a challenge there, but it boils down to what kind of teachers you have around. So as we were talking about some of the local innovative ideas this morning, so if the teacher is passionate, then I can help them, but otherwise you are absolutely right. Of course the internet is all around now, the mobiles are there, but there are still millions of people, and if we talk about Pakistan, still there are, you know, quite a few, I mean, in millions actually, out of school children. So this is a dilemma, and I honestly speaking have no solution to that, because this is something that has to be done at a different policy level, and also not education of children only, actually educating those parents. In such situations, the education of parents, you know, is very important, so that they can get together. I mean, there are examples we can discuss later on, but yes, this is a major problem in many countries, including my own country. Thank you.
好，非常感谢守门教授。
尊敬的各位领导、各位专家，大家上午好！非常感谢主办方的邀请，很高兴今天有机会能够跟大家分享最近一段时间我们研究团队做的一个研究报告：数字时代，中国普通高中科学教育开展的实践与特点。进入数字时代，这个世界变得更加复杂，各种新兴的技术层出不穷，那么使得整个世界充满了各种机遇和挑战。面对这些机遇和挑战呢，如何开展科学教育，以及如何提高国家公民的科学素养，成为当今世界各个国家都希望能够迫切解决的问题。那么我们党和国家一直高度重视科学教育。1978年3月， 全国科学大会的这个召开，邀请了科技公司来的科技的春天。那么自此呢，我们国家的科学教育就进入了4个阶段的第1个阶段，初步探索阶段。1999年是启动面向21世纪教育振兴行动计划的第1年，拉开了我国深化改革、教育改革的一个序幕。那么自此呢，我们科学教育进入了第2个阶段，深入发展阶段。
So that we have more women scientists involved, but also we ensure that scientists do not just discuss science, but also are practical in using science. We try to convince them that scientists actually are at the battlefront of saving humanity and the world. So our network actually exists for 4 purposes: to create science academies, help scientists see the value of what science academies do, establish those science academies so that they exist for a reason, a purpose, and for a function. But then we also provide platforms for scientists to be able to discuss critical issues that affect humanity and lend their voice to science. We currently have 29 science academies all over the continent: east, west, south, north, central. We have traversed the continent through languages, geographical space, and get nationals to be able to speak to the value of science in development specifically. So we give science, credible science advice to policy formulation in the continent. Now I want to bring to your attention one report that specifically tackled science education in Africa. Now, if you see the period that report was published, it started by survey period in 2020 and 2021, right at the middle, smack in the middle of when COVID was rife. So we therefore did not get quite the number of respondents we needed, or the geographical scope that we needed to cover. But for that purpose, we ended up with 24 schools in 5 countries. And we have a working group on science education program that gets to speak about science education to the continent. Because I'm trying to put across why there's a need for China and Africa to collaborate in enhancing science education in the continent, I want to present a few highlights from this report. One, and which was critical, and this is cross-cutting across several education systems and curricula in the continent, is that IBSC, inquiry-based science education, as a framework, as a concept, is not well known. Not many schools get to utilize that form of teaching of science, so not just for the students, but the teachers as well. Secondly, is that the qualification of science teachers do not get to the level of PhD when we're looking at secondary schools. Secondary schools, we're talking about year 9 up to year 12 of academic education. Most of the teachers at the high school level are actually hold undergraduate degrees, and therefore very few have masters and
innovation. And so I think how we prepare scientists to do that is important. But I'm kind of interested in hearing about this from the African perspective.
So just to clarify, Julie, you're asking how we prepare scientists to work with the teachers?
Correct.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I can answer, right. Okay, one is to ensure, and I think this also came out yesterday, that scientists do not talk down at teachers, because there's always this thing of scientists feeling bigger than, just because of their academic prowess. So one is to, and this we say all the time, you have to discuss with the teachers, with the communities, with the policymakers, because the reverse happens when scientists talk to policymakers. The policymakers now talk down to them, and they don't like it very much. So what we do, one, is to ensure that collaborative nature of speaking. Science has to be unpacked, no jargons, because we're not talking to your peers. It has to be communicated in a way that the person you're communicating, because communication is 2 ways, so we have communication training for the scientists so that they know that they're just a vessel and a channel of communication. So one, the less jargon. 2, not talking at, but talking with, but 3, to ensure that they take account or cognizance of the input and feedback they get. And that's where we go with transdisciplinary research, because it has to do with the science, with the society, and also with the policy. So even the research questions can be derived from the teachers themselves, and then the scientists use that research question to be able to define the science steps that would get them to the results that they need. So the critical of it is not talking down at teachers. Okay.
好，谢谢 ，Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
You're welcome.
OK，下面我们有请
The science engagement being housed within NRF was that NRF has access to researchers within the country. And if we can get the researchers to start engaging with communities. So the ideal is that we need to get to a point where our grant holders are expected to communicate with researchers. And this communication is varied. There is the actual communication in terms of going back to the community and talking to them about the research that you're doing. There's engaged research or citizen science research. What is it that grant holders are expected to do with regards to communities? And with regards to science engagement, these are the focus areas that we look into as an organization, but I'll just zoom into the third one that talks to supporting the development of STEMI education, and the last one that talks to partnerships. There it says partnership with private sector, but I think it actually goes beyond the private sector, and we are here today. It actually also talks to partnerships with international partners. Now the interesting part. The science engagement strategy talks to the publics. I know the English is not right. Publics is not a plural, but indulge us as a country. We talk about 11 publics, and as you can see, it is essentially everybody in the country. We engaging with learners, educators. Now just zoom into learners, educators, scientists, researchers, and students, because they are the ones for the purpose of today, and the general public. For the purpose of today, they are the important ones. But our strategy has initiatives and ambitions to actually talk to everyone or engage with everyone in the country, including tourists. So anything, we can actually transform science, and some of the things that we do, one of the business units is actually putting together a program for astro-tourism. So you cannot say that you cannot talk science to the different publics. Now, the initiatives that are detailed in the strategy